work full time. Look at that. I got you. Huh? And we're supposed to be looking at 4-year graduation. Okay, so good evening. It's good to see you. Good to see you had a good 3-day weekend. And well, Frank's not here. He must still be celebrating, right? That Heat game last night was amazing, wasn't it? I mean, they just, they dominated from beginning to end. Huh? That's so unusual because usually they start out so bad and then pick up. But last night it was right from the beginning. That was great. So, welcome. We're going to have a look today at framework for intercultural communication. This is the idea here of the habits of mind. As you can tell, it's a habit, okay, is something that we do over and over again. It becomes like second nature, like learning how to ride a bike, right? And so what we want to look at is a way to approach diversity that it becomes a habit for us to practice intercultural understanding. So we have, this is going along with our global learning outcomes. Again, global awareness, becoming aware of the diversity of language and culture and gender, okay? And then being able to see the different perspectives. And finally, to engage with people from other cultures, different from our own, differences of language, gender, and culture. So how do we do that? Well, we look for a way to approach these issues. And it also is looking at the competences we need in the 21st century. We have found that this fellow from Harvard, Tony Wagner, has developed a list of the sorts of things that you, as you go into the world and engage in your professions, need to develop, all of us really, to be successful in the 21st century. And the areas that he has studied and found that people today need to develop are innovative and practical problem solving. We need to be able to look at problems from different points of view, right? And to be able to solve them that way. We have to be effective communicators. We have to note how to talk to people from different cultures. And even in this class, we found we have a multitude of cultures, great diversity. And we need to learn how to communicate effectively with one another. We looked the other day at differences in gender communication. And so how do we bridge those differences to become effective communicators? We're in teams. We have formed teams in this class. And this is, as I spoke about the other day, this is part of what this class is about. How do we work together in collaboration, in teams, okay? We need to be flexible and self-directed learners. Knowledge is growing at such a rate that we have to be always learning, right? There's the body of knowledge increases nowadays, continually. It's not like in the past when there were only a few books being written, let's say. And it seems like knowledge grew much more slowly, but these days it's all around us. And so we need to be able to be learning all the time and directing our own learning. I was thinking of, Google wasn't even here. When did Google start? Not even 15 years ago, right? And what a difference that has made. The technology is advancing so rapidly. And again, it's a globalized world. So we have to be globally aware, reflective, and responsible as we can see with issues like global warming or climate change. This is affecting the whole world.
And with issues like the young ladies that were kidnapped, right? And you saw how through technology, everyone became engaged, like writing, tweeting and putting out, find those girls.
Right, right. So we're all aware now, these things are happening before. We are engaged in all of these things that before maybe we would never have even hardly known about. And of course, information literate researcher. How do we sift through all this information to find what is really important? So the habits of mind, as you're going to see, are a way for us to develop the ways of thinking and approaching problems that are going to allow us to develop these competencies for the 21st century. And the habits of mind came from, started out with the question by this fellow named Arthur Wimbley back in the 30s. He said, is it really true that intelligence is the same as your IQ? No? Do you take this test and find out how intelligent you are, and that's what intelligence is? You think so? What do you think? No? Why not? Ben? I mean, Anna?
Not all the same. Aspects where we shine and aspects where we where I'm strong in one thing, she might be weak, and she's weak, I might be where she's strong, I might be super weak. So a test cannot define your intelligence because it's made up by someone, and that person.
Okay, it's sort of like, the FCAT, right? We're measuring kids' knowledge and intelligence by one test. And maybe that kid, doesn't do well taking tests. So, then, we began to think, because it used to be, IQ, that defines us. But he started to ask, maybe not. And maybe it's not even, there's more than genetic factors involved. So we used to think that IQ, your intelligence, was set at birth, and that was it. So we began to think about it, and Howard Gardner, have you heard about him? Howard Gardner of the multiple intelligences. Now, he came out with this really, he's a Harvard researcher, but he wrote a book that was accessible to normal people, okay? And he said, no, we can't say there's only one intelligence. There are many kinds of intelligence. And of course there is the verbal intelligence, there's the mathematical intelligence, but there's also kinesthetic intelligence. You know what that is? What's that?
Oh, your physical intelligence,
Yeah.
your body and movement.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think LeBron James stands as far as kinesthetic intelligence?
It's higher than our intelligence.
I think he has more other intelligences too, but certainly, that is a major one. There's musical intelligence. So he found that there were many different kinds of intelligence, and we're all different. And we may excel in one area and not so much in another. And even within each of us, all of these intelligences are operating. And this has had a big impact on education, because we know we have to do more than just stand up here like I'm standing up here now. We have to engage kids and students in general in, show them videos, listen to music, get moving around. So this has had a big impact, and it gets us away a little bit from seeing only that verbal intelligence that is measured with the IQ. And then David Goleman came along and said, hey, intelligence isn't just a cognitive thing. It's not just here in your mind, okay? It's also here in your emotions. You all know many people, we sure know some people in academia, who are very intelligent, maybe on the Stanford Binet test perhaps, but maybe not so much in the emotional aspects of life. So This was another breakthrough with David Goldman. And all of this can, well, what are all the different characteristics that people have and the ways of behaving that help us to negotiate life? And David Perkins is another one contributing to this in the area what he calls visible thinking, which is taking those multiple intelligences and seeing how we can apply them in education to encourage kids to develop the different kinds of intelligence. And that leads us to the intelligent behavior as defined by Art Costa and Bennett Halleck, who are the ones that have been developing these habits of mind. So Maria's going to show you in just a minute what these habits of mind are. And I want you to kind of think about what it means to develop these habits. And first of all, you have to choose to develop them, right? Because you could say, oh, well, this doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm not going to bother. And that's your choice. No? We're talking about choice here. So maybe that will be your choice. Maybe you'll see some value to developing them, to be consciously thinking of the way that you behave. And so then you might feel the tendency to employ these patterns of behavior. Okay? So you make a choice, you value it, then you become inclined to use it. You begin to see opportunities where you can apply the different habits. Okay? And then, wow, you say, this looks interesting. I think I'm going to try it. So then you go about developing the capability to use them. And finally, when you see, well, maybe this is a good idea. Maybe it is good to be conscious of what I'm doing and to apply these particular habits in becoming, in growing in my relationships with people and in my personal. Okay. So Maria now is going to run through, should I pass this out? It's going to run through kind of quickly. Costa and Halleck have defined 16 habits of mind. That doesn't mean that it's a definitive list, okay? This is always going to be a developing system. So, you might think of others, but at least it's a way we get started, okay? So Maria's going to run over,
So,
hand these out.
Teresa's going to be handing out this list so that you have it in your hands. And so these are, as she was saying, 16 habits of mind that are currently some of the most prominent in the literature. And one way to look at these is dispositions that are successfully and mindfully employed by individuals that are successful problem solvers. And by problem solvers, meaning problems that don't necessarily have a particular solution. Not like a math problem that you know how to add and subtract, or maybe if you're a mechanic and you know how to change the oil all the time. Those are not problems, but problems that don't necessarily have a solution. So you apply these habits of mind to solve those problems and to think of ways to approach situations and achieve solutions to problems or approach situations in successful ways. Okay? So what I want you to do is I'd like you to take a few minutes to talk to a partner about any one of these and how you have seen yourself applying a particular habit of mind in a situation or in solving a problem either in school related or in your life outside of school. And then share that with your group for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to randomly select some people across the class to share their thoughts. And maybe it's something that you observed in yourself, or maybe it's a habit of mind that you've observed in one of your group mates, possibly. You know, when you work together, you've noticed something. Maybe one of you is really persistent, and you've noticed that. And what are some things that you've noticed about that person that's persistent, or maybe about yourself?
But being flexible in your thinking and thinking about how you think is important, and on your thought process and in the decisions that you make. And also for me, remaining open to continuous learning is a really, really big one. I would always be afraid of asking questions or admitting that I didn't know something, so I'd stay quiet and people would assume that I knew what they were talking about, but I really had no idea. But I've learned to not be afraid to say, oh, well, what is that? I don't know anything about that. Tell me about that. And I actually know more now.
Great. So you've developed that disposition for yourself to ask questions and not feel like I had to know everything. Right. All right. So now we're going to do an activity, and before we get to that activity, I want to discuss what we're going to do with the activity. Okay. So one of the things that we're going to do is you're going to randomly select a habit of mind out of a basket and find all the group members that have the same habit of mind and go to that group. And then with
Can
that,
I just interject that you're going to get out of your comfort zone a little bit, because we're going to see if you change who you're going to work with tonight. Okay? So you're going to get a chance to work with some people outside of your own team.
so to give you an opportunity to implement your habits of mind at a more observable level for yourself, because now you're going to be working with a new group. All right, so one of the things that we're going to do is concept attainment. And so this will help you attain an understanding of that particular habit of mind. How many of you know Jerome Bruner? Anybody heard of him? Well, he's a psychologist in New York University who's 98. But he was one of the prominent psychologists in educational psychology and how the mind thinks and works and how we learn. And so one of the things that he discovered in his research is this approach to attaining concepts and understanding a concept. And so it was through examples of the concept, non-examples of the concept, attributes of the concept, and developing a generalization. So for your particular habit of mind, you're going to do that in your group. And so for example, striving for accuracy. If striving for accuracy is my habit of mind, and that one's not going to be in the basket, then one way that I strive for accuracy, I'm a math education person, is my background. So when I'm problem solving, I'm always looking back, and I'm always rereading the problem. I'm always seeing, does the problem match the solution? Okay, so I'm always striving for accuracy that way, by carefully looking back at my solutions. In my job as a professional here at the university, I have to complete evaluations and submit them to the dean for her to provide me feedback. And as part of those evaluations, I have to do a self-evaluation. And so I reread those carefully, and I make sure that I submit all the information that she needs to complete an accurate evaluation on me. So I fill the documents in very accurately. And so I'm always striving for accuracy from that point of view as well in my profession. And so those would be examples of striving for accuracy. What might be some non-examples of striving for accuracy? Some non-examples. Anybody?
First, like
Anna. What's a non-example?
Not double checking the word, just coming in.
Yeah. Okay. Any others?
letting things ride.
Huh?
Letting things ride.
Yeah, letting things ride. Just doing it once and going, thinking you got it right from the get-go. All right, so some attributes of striving for accuracy. So attributes would be characteristics that you might observe in someone that is striving for accuracy. So one of the things that you might observe is concentration on what they're doing, right? Attention to detail, that would be striving for accuracy. Okay, so those would be some attributes of that. Rereading a question or rereading a document when they're filling it in and not just like reading it and submitting it. Maybe you've seen or in your own life when you were in school that your teacher might have given you a document to see if you read its directions. And you might have seen that and other people have talked to you about that. And a lot of times students, they just start doing the exam without having read the directions. And sometimes the teachers will have put directions, if you don't fill anything in, you get 100%, but you start doing the work that you submitted and you didn't really look deeply at the questions for accuracy or at the directions. All right, and then generalization. Generalization would be like a statement that captures what that habit of mind means, okay? And maybe you can think of it as if you wanted to tweet your friends about a habit of mind, but not using the habit of mind label, but some other metaphor or statement of what it represents or means, okay? So that's one aspect of what you're going to do. And the other aspect of what you're going to do is, in your groups, after you select the habits of mind and find your group mates, you're going to take a piece of paper and some markers, and you're going to create a drawing or a design that captures your habit of mind, okay? You don't put words, just a design and a drawing. And then when we come back together as a group, you're going to share your design, and the rest of us can try to guess which habit of mind you're representing. And then you'll tell us the information about concept attainment. You'll give us examples and non-examples of your habit of mind, and you'll give us the attributes, and you'll give us the generalization, okay? But on this, don't write, on your diagram, don't write anything, okay? And so this will capture multiple intelligences, because you might have some people in your group that like to draw, right, or are good at drawing. You might have some people that are good verbally, so they'll be good at developing that generalization for your concept, or your habit of mind.
And you can see here, this would be like a graphic representation of the striving for accuracy, right? So that gives you an example of what you're going to do as far as the visual representation. It's another way to make sure that you capture the essence of the habit of mind. So,
Okay, that group up there. Maybe you guys get over off to the side so everybody can see you.
Oh, I get it. So I guess, awesome. Thinking interdependently?
What?
We got,
Thinking interdependently?
So smart.
I know.
what gave it away?
Because they're holding hands.
Process of elimination.
Hey, we have extra ones up there.
and there's only one oval. Right?
Yeah. Very creative, very creative.
Okay, we put as examples group assignments, sharing ideas, brainstorming, and she brought up a good point that it was team sports, like soccer and basketball. And the non-examples, individual sports like track, tennis, and wrestling, working alone, and someone who doesn't want to participate.
And then attributes of somebody who shares this mindset is someone who's considerate, open-minded, personable, an extrovert, likes to communicate, works well with others, and is receptive.
And for our generalization, we said the statement, teamwork makes the dream work.
All right. All right, next.
How you can portray things in other forms. you know, we could also do a dramatization of a habit of mind, or we could do a rap song. Right? Maybe we'll do that another day, right? Okay, so, any questions? Are you beginning to get an idea of what we're talking about here with the habits of mind? Does it seem like it would have an application for you to think about how you can apply these habits of mind in situations in your own life? Elizabeth?
Well, I think it's useful to look at which ones you're lacking in and maybe try to improve on those.
Mhm.
So, like, for example, I need to manage my impulsivity, especially when I'm at the mall. So, like, that would be something I need to work on.
Okay, and does this help you to like become conscious?
Exactly, yeah. If you can identify that that's a flaw, it helps you identify things that you would like to work on.
Right, good, yeah, and that's what, you know, there's one of them in there that's called metacognition. And it's sort of, we were talking about it earlier, about it kind of being an overarching habit, because that's what this is all about, is making our thinking visible. We talked about visible thinking, you know, making it visible to ourselves, so that we can be more conscious of the things that we want to work on and to change, or, you know, to make even better, you know. So, anything else?
No, I thought it was really cool, the drawings that you all did, and how through drawing we could really understand what you were trying to portray, right? So it gives us an idea that, you know, that representation is so important as well, especially when you're dealing with different people and maybe you don't know the same languages, but you can draw diagrams, do different kinds of things that you can get your point across and others can understand.
Yeah, I think I told you, I come out of English as a second language, right? And so we use this a lot because we have to use a lot of visual representations if people don't have the proficiency in language. And so we find this kind of exercise to be very helpful in that area. Okay, so we have one more activity that we're going to do, and this is a visual representation, but with words in it too. And it's just to give you the idea of that, you know, the habits of mind. We are consciously working on the habits of mind today as a subject, as a content matter, right? But the idea is that we also have the habits of mind as sort of an overarching platform that contains, you know, when we talk about areas that we are looking at in the course, the content of the areas, that they are embedded in the kind of activity that we did today. A cognitive task, okay? And you look at the habits of mind as sort of thinking skills as well. So that it's not that we will every day be looking at the habits of mind as a content, but that they will be there present in how we deal with the content. You see what I mean? That it's a framework, as we said at the beginning. It's a framework for working through the content and working through issues that we come up with in our lives, as you nicely showed in your examples and from your own experience and in doing the concept activity. So now we're going to do an activity that is related to the content of the course. We're going to look at a case study. And you're going to, it's a case study about a student who goes to another country to study at a university in another country. And so we want to see how employing the habits of mind, could help the student to adjust to his new surroundings. Okay, see, if this student were conscious of engaging in these habits of mind, how would that help him in the situation that he finds himself. And it is about a man. All right, this particular anecdote, okay? So I'm not being, I'm not being gender prejudiced here. The student is a male, okay? And so look at that situation and see how could he, if, being conscious of those habits of mind, could he adjust or deal with the situation that he is in? And then you can think about a time when being conscious of the habits, like Elizabeth in the mall now, that will help her not to buy that $500 sweater, right? Uh-huh. Like she's saying, oh, I have to manage my impulsivity, right? Okay, so think about that. You can talk to Maria. She's a very experienced mall person.
I have to manage my impulsivity.
Okay, so read it. Take a moment to read it individually. Then figure out what habits of mind might help this individual, and then you can relate it to your own experience. Okay. So we have about 15 minutes to talk about this, and then we'll come back and share as a group. Alrighty, so what did you think about this poor fellow's plight? How, if he were aware of the habits of mind, what would he have done? Yes.
One of the things that we came up with.
Can you speak up? Because I don't know if they can hear you back there. Speak.
Do you want me to say all the ones that we came up with, or just one?
Well, tell us what you came up with, and then
Okay.
we'll see what other people will want to.
Number 4, thinking flexibly.
How so?
Because if you were just to have like an open mind,
Can you hear her? Barely. Maybe you could, turn around so you're talking to.
if you were to have like an open mind, it wouldn't really bother him. And he can like actually, it's like the same thing if you're put in an uncomfortable situation. Just look at your surroundings and just kind of be like, okay, let me just try this out for a little bit and see if it works out for me or not. That was number 4.
Number 13, taking responsible risks. We felt like if he would have ventured out of his comfort zone instead of just kind of like hanging around and waiting for somebody to talk to him, then he might have made more friends that way, or gone to a bar and after work and made friends at somewhere that wasn't necessarily school or work, wherever he was at.
And
Another one would be 16, remaining open to continuous learning. He could have tried to learn how the Northerners, act and how their culture is up there, so he can try to blend in a little bit more better. Or he can be open to learning other things to do besides what they're doing.
one more thing, it was like number 13, finding humor. And I like the way that she described it was like, oh, if they were giving him the cold shoulder, he could have just been like, oh, they're crazy, and just like laughed it off or something.
This would be very important in adjusting to a new culture. Anything to add to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, Melissa.
He could have, started to think about the way that he was thinking